Hi, my name is Jay. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to go over all the apps that I would recommend you install on your phone if you are planning on going on a thru hike on any of the long trails or really any backpacking trip in general. The first of the apps that you would want, especially if you are going on a long trail, Far Out is a very common app. It's like a navigation app, but they have data about like water sources, campsites, road crossings, and it's socially influenced as well in that people put in information. So at a road crossing, someone might put in a name of a shuttle, so you have a phone number there that you can access. It has a date on there as well, so it's usually relevant, up-to-date information, so quite worthwhile. And unfortunately, Far Out will only work with various long trails that they have data for. So if you're going to go on a thru hike like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail, they have all that information. You do have to purchase it, but they have all that information, and you can download all that information per section for offline use. And it'll also download the maps for that section as well, so you don't have to have all of this extra maps floating around. But let me give you a rundown of what Far Out looks like here. So Far Out, as you can see on the side of me here, it has just a ton of maps. There's like the PCT, there's the Arizona Trail, well, Western Wildlands Trail. They have not just biking trails, but they have not just hiking trails, but they have biking as well as watercraft trails like canoeing trails. They even have little ones like the Wichita Trail, and like you see a price on the bottom, things do cost money. They're not necessarily free. And as we go east, we got the Appalachian Trail, which starts in Atlanta. And that obviously you can see is I purchased it already, and Florida Trail is $37. But let's go back to the Appalachian Trail because we'll primarily focus on that for now. So I already bought it, so you can hit what's included, and generally the app will come with a little section if it's a long trail. So like the Springer Approach Trail, 9 miles. It's not much of anything, but it gives you a little taste. But you do have various sections that you can download later. But the first section, of course, is Springer to Standing Bear Farm, which is right after Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It's 242 miles. The catch with this app, I recommend this like thoroughly for thru hikers. The big catch is there's no cell service at Standing Bear Farm around there, like where you get off the park. So you want to make sure that you have the next set of maps downloaded before you finish off the previous set. So whenever you're staying at a hotel before Standing Bear, you should download the maps. But I'll give you a demo of what this looks like. So Springer Standing Bear. I won't give you my exact location because I'm not anywhere near the Appalachian Trail right now. But here it is, Springer. On the app, you set the direction you're going, north or south. It's going to be confusing for all the flip-floppers out there, which is where they do a section and they go back and do another section. But this trail going north, you'll see 0.3, meaning the shelter, actually the turnoff is a little before 0.2. You can click anywhere along the red line and it tells you how far along that trail it is. So 4.1 from the start. If you're on the trail itself, it'll even tell you how far away that spot is from you, which is highly useful if you're wanting to go to, say, Long Creek parking lot. It will say how far you are from there as long as it has a GPS location from you. So that's super convenient. And if you scroll up, it has some information about that location. And if you go into comments, you'll see a relatively recent, that just updated, but February 24th is the recent comment, and I guess someone's got a ton of clear water there. So yeah, thanks 6-2. Clover hikes, there's no camping right along the stream, things like that. So there's a lot of information there. So Far Out, I mean, the biggest thing, it's not as necessary on the AT as like the PCT or the other desert type hikes, is the water source. This is old information, I think. But as of November 10, 2022, it was flowing. And things like that are useful. The solid water drop means it's a reliable water source. So it's not as useful because it's generally running. But the half water droplet sign is a unreliable water source. So it's nice to be able to read the comments, see when they posted it, and see how well it's flowing. Sometimes you even get used to certain people's posts, that their posts are more reliable than someone who just posted one out of nothing at all. But yeah, so far out, I think you really should get it if you're on the edge for it, because the logistics is what helps the most. As you zoom in and out, and you can see all the hostels, and you can see town information. If you go into like Neil's Gap, go into About, and has information about the store. Sometimes that information could be out of date, but has information about the store, and you can also go into comments and see information about other rides. And there's a hostel, Your Home in the Woods has their number there. February 25th was when Hey Home went there, and that's great information, because sometimes a hostel will be out of business and it'll write there that it will be out of business, because Far Out doesn't necessarily update everything real time, but the comments will be mostly real time. So if you go through and you see some places out of business, you shouldn't try to plan on going there. Let's go to a big town. So first town out was Helen. There's no, well, there's one inn listed. The downside with Far Out is the businesses that are listed, generally they have to pay to get listed. So not every business will be listed, but some you'll see, like Baymont Inn is listed because they paid for their listing to show, and there's some comments about that. But it's nice because you can kind of see where you can resupply. Betty's Country Store, and Dollar General is not on this list for some reason, but it's really nice for logistics wise, and you can create custom routes. So you can kind of see what mile that you'll be getting off. So see 52.5, and if you think you're going to go 80 miles on this next leg, you can click ahead, maybe randomly pick one, Moore Creek 50 miles, and go, oh, I can go further ahead. And hey, there's a bed and breakfast right there. Maybe I could stay there 80 miles up ahead. Very useful. It also gives you information about the national parks, all the information, how to get the permit, although I noticed that information is out of date this year so far. But, and you'll see the map ends here right outside the national park. So Far Out, super useful, especially if you're vlogging or if you're just recording statistics, because you can create custom routes. Let me create a custom route for you, plan a route. Let's see how long it takes to go through Smoky Mountain National Park. So let's start from Fontana Dam. You just click and hold, and then you can click on any one thing. So hey, maybe I want to go to this shelter right here. Click and hold again, and you'll see it's 46.5 miles, and they'll tell you the total ascent as well as descent. But it's nice having the miles and the total route ascent, so you can plan out, you know, is this going to take 2 days, 3 days, things like that. And then if you create a custom route of your day hike, you can get the exact miles as well as the elevation change for that section, so you can log that. The downside here with the custom routes is some of the trails are not listed. Like when I went through Smoky Mountain National Park, I actually had to take this road off of Newfound Gap and walk down into Gatlinburg. So the information I got for this walk was through Gaia, which I'll talk about later. But Far Out, super useful. Let's cancel that route. If you don't have it, I highly recommend it. If you do, learn how to use it well. One thing I noticed is if you're ever wondering why your location's not showing, on the very bottom right, there is a green, like a blue button. If you hit it, your location doesn't show up anywhere. So your blue dot won't show up on trail. So if you hit it again, it will show up. So you can accidentally hit that sometimes, so be careful with that. And that's the gist of this for now. The beauty of this is it works in offline mode. Online mode, you can see all the maps around here. But when it's in offline mode, it downloads the maps just right along the trail. So you can kind of see what's next to the trail, and maybe some towns. Some towns are much further away than resupply points, and they may not show. But overall, very useful to have. Another useful feature is you can see all the campsites, and it says on there generally for many tents, it says there's a space for many tents, which is very vague. But if you go to comments, you can usually get a rundown on how many tents could be there. So about 4 tents there, and looks like on January 17 there was a bear sighted near there. So it's nice to look at the historical info as well to see what other people say. Somebody might say 4 tent spots here, and then you'll go down and you'll see 2. So I don't know. And you'll also get a report if there's water nearby. People might share anything important, really. So it's nice to use for planning day to day as well as like week-long stretches at a time. Another thing I want to show you with Far Out is if you go into, this is Hiawassee, you can click on an inn, and when you go in the About section, you'll get phone numbers as well as their website sometimes. And usually you get their hours of service if it's, if they have hours. But comments, no hot tub. But let's go into, hey, there's a laundromat. Hey, maybe you want to do laundry. So you go in there, hit About, and you'll see their hours. Again, Far Out Company, they do not maintain it real time, so it does fluctuate, and sometimes they have wrong hours, but it's generally good. If it's off, people usually fill in the comments about it. And it's really good if you want to see what places you can resupply. There's a Walgreens there, Hiawassee Hometown Pharmacy, and breweries there. No restaurants listed here so far. You'll notice how it says Ingalls Market in blue. The brighter color is the Far Out icon. So there's Ingalls, the grocery store, and yeah, no other trail full outdoors. And it'll tell you what kind of gear they have, and no hours listed, but all kinds of information you may want. Far Out's there. Sometimes things aren't listed in Far Out, like I mentioned, and you'll see, like as I zoom in, there's a steakhouse there that's not listed in Far Out. So there's a lot of things not listed. It's good to go into Google too. When you're there, Google what's around there and enjoy. But yeah, you'll see a lot of things that are missing. There's even a Dollar General that's not listed here. A lot of things are missing, so normal. Another app that I highly recommend if you love learning is an app called Seek. I guess it's by iNaturalist. And there's an iNaturalist app as well, but I actually prefer the Seek app a little more. But you notice the location says Hamburg because I'm currently in Hamburg, Germany. I'm spending time with my girlfriend before we go off on adventures in another month or so, month and a half. But this one's super nice. If you take a picture, you can actually upload it to Seek. It's always nice. Every time you hit the camera, it reminds you not to eat anything unless you absolutely know what it is. But if you go in there, you can actually take pictures of things and it will identify it. Like, it thinks it's a frog. Obviously, it's not any real frog, but it's close enough that it thinks it's a frog. It just can't identify it at all. Oh, and you could take a picture of it and it catches it. Somehow or another, it thought that was a real frog, which, I don't think it looks like it, but yeah, sure. You can view species and you can actually read about it. It doesn't look like, it's not 100% accurate, but you can go in there and see how it's classified and then the season of like how many sightings there are per month. It's actually super nifty, and you can go in there and it actually keeps your observations recorded. So as you can see, this is chronological order. So from the beginning, let's go on to the beginning of my Appalachian Trail through hike. Fan club moss was one of the first things I identified. And you can see all the different flowers I identified: mayapple, peach trees, bird's foot violet, all kinds of stuff. And it doesn't just do plants, it does animals as well as fungi and insects and birds. Fungi does a great job identifying all those. Insects, it's hard to get a good clear picture of some insects, and some insects it just couldn't get. But birds, it's also very hard to get a good clear picture of birds as well, just because they fly away as soon as you get anywhere near them. And they're always hiding in the branches. But amphibians, got a bunch there. That frog I'm going to have to delete. Mammals. I highly recommend this app to anybody that really wants to learn, and every time they go hiking they see something and they don't know what it is, and they don't have like a mentor who can teach you all these things. It's great to have this on hand. It's not 100%, so you want to identify it and look at some sample pictures to see if it is it for sure. But I'd say most of the time it's identified it, it's been correct. This frog thing, I mean, I don't know what happened there. But yeah, Seek, it's called Seek, at least on Android. All these apps I'm going to mention are on Android. Most are on Apple as well, but these are on Android. But Seek is a beauty, and it does work offline, so you don't need service for it. The other thing it has is achievements. So it has like species badges. So I got a bronze bird badge because I identified one bird. I got one amphibian, but the flowers, I got over 20 plants. I got a gold badge for that. It's kind of fun to have. There's a lot I'm missing, like mollusks and fish. Fish are hard to get a good identifying picture of, but Seek is super nice to have. I highly recommend it. It works offline, so give it a shot. Next app. I love this app. I didn't use it in the beginning until people commented about it, and I thought, okay, I'll give it a shot, because I thought, how is it possibly going to work? Most of the time you hear birds, sometimes they're really clear, and sometimes it's just too faint. Like you try to record the audio and it just doesn't work sometimes. But anyway, it's called Merlin. It uses audio to identify birds. So once you start the bird ID, you can hit sound ID. That's most often what I do. And once you hit record, if you hear a bird chirping and you hit that record, it'll start recording, just kind of scanning for the sounds. And once it picks it up, like I was at a table with 3 other people talking, and there was a wood thrush, like a hermit thrush, far off in the distance. I heard it and I didn't know what it was, so I started it and I was able to identify it. It was amazing. So Merlin is, I think it's called Merlin because it's magical how well it works. Sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the time it works. And it works in offline as well. So anytime you're sitting there, you can check it out. And the other nice thing is you can actually pull up old sound recordings that you had. Let's see. Oh yeah, hermit thrush. This is what a hermit thrush looks like. It's super faint. You can barely hear it, but it was able to pick it up. The other really nice thing about this app is once it identifies a bird, it pulls up all these sample songs of it. So you can click on one and you can hear it. So you can confirm yourself whether that matches what you've been hearing. I think only once have I had a bird identification where none of the sounds sounded exactly like the bird I heard, but almost every time it's identified a bird, it's identified it, I felt correctly. And every once in a while you get somewhere where you just have tons of birds going.
Too many birds, it's confusing. Tufted titmouse?
Just a lot of birds, and Merlin is one of those apps I highly recommend as well. Another lens I use quite often on trail, this one does not work offline, but it's Google Lens. Basically, you search with your camera or you can upload a picture to it, and Google, it basically sends to Google your image and searches for that item. So let's try this frog. It actually got it right. The Flipkart one, it looks exactly like this frog here. But Google Lens works great. If Seek doesn't work, I try Google Lens. Unfortunately, you do need service for it, but you get a lot of results back that, that match it. But Google Lens is pretty good, and it works for anything as well. You could even, if someone posts something on Facebook, you can actually like take a screenshot of it and send it to Google Lens, and it could tell you where they are or what it is. It's pretty nice, but that's another one I highly recommend. Another app along the line of birds is just called Audubon, and it's not, you can use it to identify birds based on certain features, but you might need binoculars to be able to see those features that well. But I like to use it if Merlin matched up a bird. you can go into Audubon and you can look up the bird and you can look up all this information about it, as well as pull up more sample sounds. And it does work offline. You do have to pull down maybe like a 500 meg database for it, but it does work offline. So it's another one, and it's free. So that one's free as well. Merlin's free, Seek is free, Lens is free. So I would install it. I only use it maybe twice on trail, but I think it's worthwhile and it's nice to have in case you need it. Another app, I have what's called Sky Map. I know on Apple there are other apps similar. Right now it's going to show me crazy stuff because it's sunny out, but that's the horizon as I hold my phone up, and as I hold my phone higher, it tells me Jupiter is almost straight ahead. It's the middle of the day, so I can't see it. And in this house with the laptop here, I'm sure some electromagnetic force is kind of throwing off the calibration, but it says Jupiter's up there, and there seems to be something else with there. Oh, Venus is right over it. Quite fascinating, right? Every once in a while you'll be on trail and you'll look up and you'll see a really bright star and you wonder, what is that thing? And you could just pull up some app like this and look around and see what Venus often shows quite brightly. Jupiter and Mars, those three, when they pop up, they're usually pretty bright. So you can kind of look around, and you can look at constellations as well. I usually keep that off, although I guess some of these constellations are up. There's Hercules, Aquila, Pegasus. But yeah, I would highly recommend having something like this. Again, if you like to learn and you're curious and you look up and you don't know what it is, there's a source on your phone that could tell you, and this also works offline as well. So highly recommend that one as well. If you have an inReach, you're likely to have one of these Garmin apps. It's called Earthmate, and that's for the inReach Mini original as well as the older models. And there's a Garmin Explorer, which is for the inReach Mini 2. The Explorer app, I feel is much better functioning in connection with the inReach. So if you don't have an inReach at all and you can spend a little extra money, I'd recommend an inReach Mini 2 over the Mini, just because Explorer works better, at least on my phone on Android. So Garmin Explorer, let's open that up. It's very similar to Earthmate, just works a little better. Most people use this app mostly just to sync with the inReach they have, because there's really no way to type anything on an inReach. So you have to use a phone through Bluetooth, connect it, and you could send your messages, you could pull from contacts, you could do all kinds of stuff. So if you have an inReach, you probably have this app already. What most people don't know is if you click on the bottom left, there's a map section. And if you zoom out and show whatever states you're interested in, you can actually hit the layers button on the very top left, and you'll see maps. If you click on maps, you can click on download maps, and it'll load the listing of apps of the states that you showed when you hit that. So if you're zoomed into one city and you hit it, you're only going to see one state. But if you zoom out, you'll see all the states that are shown on that app. And you'll see I have West Virginia downloaded, and you can download any of the states. It's actually pretty efficient because, see, like all of New Hampshire is 15 megs, New York is 57 megs, and it's actually quite detailed. So let's try to find Georgia, 57 megs, a little bigger. If in Garmin Explorer you download the Topo North America map, that actually shows you the Appalachian Trail. Of course, recent changes won't be visible just because it's old, but the red line is an Appalachian Trail, so you can actually follow it. And although you don't get information about like where campsites are, where there's water, things like that, if you really need an app just for navigation, this is actually a free app. You just have to have an account with Garmin, and you can actually just follow along the trail, and you can download the maps for offline use, and it'll show you where you are along the trail, and you can just kind of follow it along. As you can see, sometimes it's a little off, but the red line is easy enough to follow, and we're in the Smoky Mountain National Park there, and it goes all the way, and it just keeps going. But if I zoom out, you can kind of, you have to zoom back in. You can see the red line zigzagging around. That's the AT there. It keeps wanting to download the states that I am not at. But as you can see, it's a good free alternative to Far Out as far as if you just want navigation. It's a good to have it as a backup. I have seen someone's Far Out on the PCT anyway, it just wouldn't work at all. So if you had an alternative source of navigation, you would have been a little better off. But it's a free app. Garmin Explorer, Garmin Earthmate is also similar. And if you just download all the maps, you can use it and go crazy. Again, it's free. It just doesn't have all the information like town supplies, town stops, stores, numbers, rides, shuttle numbers, things like that. So not the best for planning a through hike or a long hike, but it is a free source of navigation anyway. And likely you have this installed, and if you just download the maps, you have it as a backup navigation app. So here is my travel folder of apps. Of course, Far Out, Earthmate Explorer, Airbnb, and Booking. I actually have used Airbnb. Maybe you won't use as much unless you're taking a long break because of injury or something. But Booking I've used quite often on trail. Sometimes it's easier to just book a motel. That way you don't have to talk on a phone, and if it's a really weak signal, it might cut in and out, and you have to like tell them your credit card number over the line. So Booking is a easy, more surefire way of making a booking, like at a motel. But the only catch is you don't get any hiker discounts or veteran discounts that you may be eligible for. If you use Booking, you pretty much have to pay what you use, what you just agreed on. But if you call the hotel, you might get discounts. So it's iffy. Booking's nice when you know there's a busy weekend coming up or something like that, and you're way ahead. Oftentimes you can cancel within a day or two. Don't take my word for it. Every booking cancellation is different, so you have to read it. But you can use it to book rooms multiple days. You can see exactly what you're going to get, and you'll know exactly how much you're going to pay. So Booking is another useful app. Expedia, not so much. Recreation.gov, that's for my travels. Gaia is another mapping application, which I used on the AT actually. The catch is it is a pay service. So you may not want to pay for it because it's not cheap. But Uber and Lyft were two things I install for every through hike. The thing is, you may go to a town, maybe the one shuttle driver in a town is no longer doing it. Maybe they're out of town for the weekend or a week. And if they have an Uber or Lyft, this will be a lifesaver because this can drive you around. Not every town has them, especially small towns. And not every town will have one, but may have the other. So it's nice to have both as an alternative. So I don't remember if I ever used Uber or Lyft on the AT. I know Tina has, but on the Arizona Trail, I used Lyft or Uber a few times. I even used Uber to get, maybe a Lyft to get to the southern terminus. And on the PCT, I also used Uber. So it's nice to just have them, in case you need a ride. For you vloggers out there, in case you're doing a trail that's not in Far Out and you can't get the statistics for it, or if you just like statistics, you can use Gaia. You do have to pay for it, but with it, you can download maps for offline use. But you have to make sure you do that before you need it. But if you get to a hotel and you hike this section, and of course Far Out won't tell you how long a distance it was or what the elevation changes, you can create a custom route. Like this was the first part of my walk down from Newfound Gap towards Gatlinburg. So you can actually map it. It tells you the distance, 10.8 miles, and the descent, which was quite significant, negative. So it's 3,662 feet down, pretty much straight down the whole walk down. Oddly enough, I did go up 667 feet, but it's nice being able to use this to map out the distance and elevation change for trails that are not in Far Out. Like I took I wouldn't even call it a blue blaze. A blue blaze is usually when you're on the 18, you branch off to something. This was just like me going willy-nilly. But I took a totally different trail to go watch the falls. I think it was a mile away. But without Gaia, I wouldn't have been able to calculate out how far it was. There might be other apps that you can use to do that. maybe with all trails you can route it as well. But with Gaia, I was able to route it and it told me the elevation change, and I was able to type it into my stats to add it because that's like a couple miles extra hiking for that day. So I wanted to get all the numbers in. And I believe with All Trails, it is also a subscription service to work offline, but I think it does work online, but you can put in the information. And similar to that with Gaia, Gaia won't work offline unless you're a subscriber. But online you can do some things. I'm not sure all the things you can't do though. But I generally use Gaia for other purposes, especially living out of an SUV. It's nice to have public land overlays so you know exactly where you are if you're on private land or public land, things like that. But this is an optional one. I don't think you necessarily need it, but it's just nice to have in case you need it. For navigation purposes, you can download the entire AT trail and have that show, but I opted not to do that because between Far Out and Earthmate, I had it all, and it's also a huge track in Gaia, and I didn't want it in there. But it's a useful app, but likely on the AT you'll never need it. Another recommendation I also have is on Google Maps. You can download maps for offline use as well, and quite often I would download maps of certain areas. So if I'm in offline and I don't have cell service, I can actually still search those areas for resources as far as restaurants or stores, things like that. And I can get the store numbers, no hours necessarily, but you can get telephone numbers and you can kind of take a screenshot so you can call them later when you have service. But Google Maps offline works great. You just have to remember to download them every time. So unfortunately, as you go north or as you move along any long trail, you always have to download maps of sections you're coming up to. You just have to remember to do that and you should be good. Quite essential for Far Out though. Always have the next section's map downloaded when you start that one section. That way if you forget, you already have it, because you're not in town all the time, and sometimes service is available, but well, quite often service is available. It's actually quite amazing. And service can be strong enough, but you'll find that you're standing at the top of a mountain, standing there, waiting for all your maps to download. And you can't go anywhere because you know as soon as you start heading down, the signal's going to get cut. So you just stand there, and it's no fun. So before you go anywhere, download the maps and all the information for the next section. And that's a rundown of all the apps I recommend you have on your phone for a thru hike or even any backpacking trip or day hike even. Seek is useful for that. Merlin's plenty useful for that. In fact, I used Merlin just while we were walking around this lake here. But yeah, hopefully this list helps you out. Of course, there are other apps like Netflix, Amazon Prime, YouTube Premium. If you have YouTube, you pay like $10, $11 a month. And you can actually download YouTube videos for offline viewing. So when you're in town, you can download them all. And first night in tent, you can kind of watch a couple before you go to bed. Just things like that, because you won't be hiking all the time. Sometimes your legs will be shot. Sometimes it's raining. Sometimes it's just cold. And you want to sit in your quilt and just watch something for 30 minutes before you go to bed. So it's nice to having those apps just installed and things downloaded and ready to go for you to watch when the need strikes. That's about it. Hopefully this helps everyone. All you people out there hiking this season. I'll see some of you out there, but not necessarily on American trails, really. Not until later this year. But thanks for watching, everyone. You all take care and hope you all have a good time out there and have fun hiking.